My name is Kalia Jerome. I'm doing a persuasive speech on abolishing capital punishment. George Stinney was the youngest person to be executed in the United States at the age of 14. Stinney was arrested and convicted for the murder of two Caucasian females. However, this young man was innocent. There are many like him that include Lena Baker, David Spence, and Troy Davis. These old cases have a common thread. These innocent people were robbed of their lives and murdered by the hands of a government that proclaims justice for all. Unfortunately, in my opinion, there is no such thing, only justice for the few. How would you feel knowing that you were accused of a crime you did not commit and was sentenced to die in the morning? Better yet, just imagine you're sitting in a courtroom to support a family member or close friend who has been falsely accused of a capital offense. David Thibodeau spent 15 years on death row in Louisiana before he was exonerated in 2012. He was convicted of raping and killing his 14-year-old cousin in 1997. He falsely confessed to the murder after a 9-hour interrogation. Fortunately, DNA tests found him to be innocent. Moreover, Earl Washington, a Virginia man who was mentally ill, was sentenced to death after he allegedly confessed to committing a murder he did not commit. He served a decade on death row. 9 days before his execution, DNA testing obtained by the Innocence Project proved his innocence. That was just two of many horrific stories of innocent people who were convicted, sentenced to death row, and luckily obtained their innocence. However, many others are not so lucky. Capital punishment should be abolished. Capital punishment is useless. It does not stop nor prevent murder. Capital punishment is prone to errors that have led to the execution of innocent people. Additionally, it is used in an arbitrary and racist manner. The United States is one of many in the world that practice the act of killing someone for certain crimes. Many see it as barbaric and against American values and humanity, while others see it very important in fighting premeditated murder. Here are a few reasons capital punishment should be abolished. People that are in favor of it argue that people fear death, not life, and so therefore capital punishment stops people from committing heinous crimes. However, capital punishment does not prevent others from committing murders. According to the FBI Uniform Crime Report, states without the death penalty have much lower homicide rates compared to the ones that do. The South accounts for 80% of U.S. executions and has the highest regional murder rate. When was the last time you seen a wealthy person on death row, let alone executed? One of the most important factors in determining whether a defendant will receive the death penalty depends on the quality of the representation that is provided. Almost all defendants fighting capital cases cannot afford their own lawyers. In many cases, public defenders are appointed. They lack trial experience, they're overworked and underpaid. It has been said that there have been many cases where lawyers slept through parts of the trial or arrived under the influence. How can the justice system provide equal justice under the law when adequate representation to the poor is not provided when a life is in jeopardy? Also, race plays a role. Since 1977, blacks and whites have equally been the victims of brutal murders. However, 80% of the people executed are convicted of murders involving white victims. In 1990, a report from the General Accounting Office concluded that 82% of the studies reviewed, race was found to influence the likelihood of being charged with capital murder or receiving the death penalty. Innocent people are being executed. 140 men and women have been exonerated, some only minutes away from execution. Eyewitness identification is the leading cause of wrongful convictions. 75% of convictions were overturned through DNA testing, according to the Innocence Project. Many people do not realize that carrying out one death sentence costs 2 to 5 times more than keeping a criminal in prison for the rest of his or her life. You ask, why is that? It has something to do with the endless appeals, motions, briefs, and the additional required procedures that drag the process out. Capital punishment violates the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. There are different methods that are used ranging from electrocution, firing squad. Alright. Alright.
So you can edit it. I was looking at when it got to the end, like
I know you ain't know. What you want me to tap?
I'm looking at the words through the paper, so I knew it. Like, that's the only good way to that shit.
What if we cannot edit this video? We're going to do this okay.
Y'all, I'm gonna be serious. I ain't playing. I'm gonna be so serious.
Oh, you recording?
Yeah, she never said it.
She didn't tell me.
Come on, I put it on.
Capital punishment violates the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, including torture. There are different methods that are used, ranging from electrocution, firing squad, gas chamber, lethal injection, and hanging. Now, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, the current method of lethal injection used is constitutional. However, how was that when several people have suffered because of this form of execution? Romeo Brown was subjected to 18 attempts to find in the vein. The process took over 2 hours. The government had to stop the execution and postpone it for a week. Christopher Newton's execution took over 2 hours. It was so long they had to give him a bathroom break. Although support for capital punishment remains strong in the United States, the support may drop if alternatives were offered. Life in prison is the worst punishment. With a death sentence, the suffering is over, if lucky, within an instant. With life without parole in prison, the pain and suffering lasts for decades. Life without parole allows for time for mistakes to be corrected in hopes that an innocent person could be released. For those who are in favor of the death penalty may agree that LWOP cannot prevent or stop offenders from killing prison staff or other inmates or taking others hostage to escape, since it is said they have nothing to lose anyway. However, that statement does not hold much credibility. Actually, multiple studies have been completed since capital punishment was reinstated. It shows that prisoners sentenced to life without parole do not pose any threat to other prisoners or correction officers than do the inmates in the general population. Additionally, in most cases, inmates commit fewer crimes in prison than those who are eligible for parole. Therefore, prisoners can be safely resentenced to life without parole without impacting the security or safety of the prison. In every murder and rape case, DNA testing should be mandatory. DNA evidence is rarely available in homicide cases. DNA analysis has helped identify the guilty and exonerate innocent people all over the nation. People often say that execution gives the families of the victims closure or relief. However, families actually express remorse and sadness due to the execution. They feel the $100 million spent into the capital system could be spent to help families with expenses such as funeral costs, provide counseling that is needed to heal while grieving, and possibly provide communities with resources to prevent violent crimes before they happen. In conclusion, when does the hostility and ignorance stop? Murder is unaccepted in society, so what sense does it make for society to use a murderous method to solve a problem? Sentencing a criminal to death does not solve the problem or the questions that are left behind. Family members are left to grieve and mourn and will forever carry the never-ending burden of pain and heartache, while the criminal no longer has to pay the consequences of his or her actions. The choice is all yours. Either you can fight to abolish capital punishment or stand alongside everyone else to protect it. You may want to take the time to think about it, just in case you may be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the next life you're trying to save is your own. Thank you.